Hello, friends. How are you today? I'm so excited to be here and talk with you about the Schumann resonance, energy, and the human experience. So if you could like or subscribe to the channel or both, that would be wonderful. It really helps me. And Happy New Year. It's January 1st. It's the first day of the calendar year. There's an interesting chart today. Let me point out the new things in the chart, the interesting things, and we'll go over the black charts and I'll give you a little energy summary at the end. The most interesting thing about the current chart is these lines that have occurred, the vertical lines. This is, I don't know, maybe it's about the third time, possibly the fourth, that we've seen them like this. And when they first came out, I noted with you that they are, they're different than the technological effect. And here's the questions that I asked about these lines. Are they natural? Is there a new type of technological effect? Are the lines from solar, cosmic, or earth energy? We just don't know. I don't know, but we're going to be monitoring it and continue to monitor it. There was no M-class flares on this day, and there was only one each day before that. Although it's funny that now we're talking about only one M-class flare when just one was a big deal previously. In previous years when we didn't have gazillions of them, or perhaps I should say dozens in short periods of time. And then we got a little bit of action or color back on the chart. I'll talk about this next time because it's forming into something, but I will talk about the effect on the black charts. The other super interesting thing here is I mentioned this in writing on the charts I passed around over the last couple days, but it's like the deck is cleared. Oh no, I did mention this in the last video. We're so deep in this blue energy. See how there's even no connection down here? It looks like it's black. Let's take a look. Yeah. All right. So you can see the blue does go partly up to here. Actually, okay. So the blue does go to similar levels, but it's so deep. Okay. And it's such dark blue. It's common for it to be almost black here at the top end of the chart. But what this does is it gives us a frequency rest. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a sec. Frequency rest. All right, let me reset the coloring on the chart. So those are the key things. We still have the line here at 20, and I always say that we're paying attention. We are paying attention. Humanity, 20 hertz. It correlates with human brain waves in the beta range and mid-beta, where we are thinking and we are engaged. Not just observationally, but mentally engaged with what is going on around us, which is really interesting, given that we have this rest going on at the top of the chart in the very low hertz. And the dark blue at the bottom has gotten a little less so, okay? But still at the very bottom, closest to the spiritual experience or the gamma brain waves at 40 hertz. You can see it's still deep blue, and more so when the vertical lines come. Really interesting. Okay, let's take a look at the frequency, amplitude, and quality charts. It's interesting because the green and the red are still having flattish periods where the frequency range really gathers around a particular number, okay, numeric. So this is, for example, here, it's all gathered around 24.74 hertz. And red has been doing this as well, okay? And here, it's more like it's bottoming, but there's a straight line aspect. It's not obviously a complete straight line, but just in terms of the trend, it's very flattish. Alternatively, white and yellow are really moving still. They're really flowing in a much more smooth way. Like when I talk about that, I'm talking about the curve here. Okay, so this was interesting. We had this big, strong spike up in the green frequency, courage. That's how I summarize this: standing up, courage, strengthening internally. And it's interesting because the spacing between the spikes also expanded, got wider as the vertical lines came in. So, I put out on Twitter and I think Truth Social and Telegram. That's where I put out my charts if you want to see them in great detail. And then we'll be putting them on Substack. But I had put out a picture of the transmission, and I also retweeted a video of the transmission of one of the M-class flares in late December. And what you can see is there's the flashing, the transmission of energy. You could imagine that if one was tracking it linearly, it could show up as lines across a frequency range. So, but there was no solar flares here. So I'm saying that this could be a natural energy that we just, I just don't know what the source of it would be. It's a mystery. All right, so we had this cool spike upward here, and let me tell you what the really fascinating thing about this was. What it was that green peaked at 26, okay, when, is this white? No, this is yellow here. Yellow peaked at almost 5, white peaked at 8 plus, red peaked at 7 plus, but look at this. I mean, at 26, the green amplitude is multiples stronger. And we had this spike in courage about 24 hours later. There's nothing on and it's funny, it's just snuck in at the end of the day. But you know what it matches with? It matches with this. And you know what's weird? This looks like almost like a reverse moon line. This is what the moon lines tend to look like, but flipped around. With this do. Maybe the moon made a transmission to us. Wouldn't that be interesting? But look how the colors, the patterns in the color, it's just really interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting? I bet there's all sorts of numerics. This just flashed in my mind. Like you could put numbers related to the frequency range on each of these pixels, and it would create a numeric pattern. And that might be interesting to analyze. I don't have the computer and database to do that, and I probably wouldn't know how to do that. I would know how to analyze a stream of numbers, possibly, but there's probably people out there who would do an amazing job with this. That's an interesting thought. Wow. Could you interpret the transmission if you did that? Probably. And why does it do this at the end? Especially when it's the moon line, when it's flipped over. Why does it kind of break up at the end? I do not know. Would be interesting, though. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was a transmission from the Earth to the moon? Whoa. Okay, that'd be cool. All right, now onto the qualities. This is really interesting. We saw this the last time we saw these vertical lines as well. We just see the spikiness and the green quality return. And as I've said, I view that the green quality represents humanity in general as a whole. And 24 is pretty close to the high end of the range. It would peak at 30 and 31 quite a bit pre-COVID, pre the last 3 years. And so this is a strengthening of an inner sense of oneself. This is the human experience, how I interpret this. It's a strengthening of the inner sense of oneself. Higher quality is basically higher clarity on the frequency, the true nature, not the frequency, of the resonance, the true nature of it. And so spiking quality, in the human experience, it would relate with a greater sense of self, increased determination, a greater sense of purpose. It is so interesting how it's just up, down, up, down, up, down. It's kind of like, we're there, we retreat. We're there, we retreat. We're there, we retreat. And I have something interesting to say about this. So take a look on my social media if you'd like to see these charts in greater detail. What I was thinking about as I was looking at the black charts, and especially that up-down nature and the qualities, the spike in the green frequencies, the major like relative spike in amplitudes in green, where green was just, you just don't see it stronger than all the other amplitudes, and yet there it was. And what I've been wondering is, I've been wondering about the human experience, and what it seems like is that there's a strengthening here of the heart, of one's resolve, of a connection with soul, of an inner sense of things for humanity. It's like things are coming into focus for us. But it was interesting with the spiking up and down in the quality, right? The clearness. It's almost like a flipping back and forth. I don't know if you'd say it's two sides of the same coin, or it's two states of being, right? Connected with the truth of oneself, disconnected, connected, disconnected, connected, disconnected. And here's what I was thinking. There's a certain percentage of the population of Earth, of humanity, definitely of this country, right, that's been going through an awakening of consciousness. Initially, the awakening is usually intellectual, but over time, the awakening deepens and ultimately becomes spiritual. One sees oneself in sort of the greater stream of life. One starts to see the spiritual nature of events unfolding and the meaning and purpose of one's own life within this human life that we have, and within the current time into which we were born and during which we live. And yet at the same time, there's a segment of the population that is part of what I call the soul cult, that very much wanted to act together under a leader who would tell them what to do, no matter if the actual results, no, how do I say this? They wanted to be told what to do. They wanted an authority to trust in. They believed with all their hearts that authority was taking good care of them, loved them, cared for them, would do the right thing for them. Now, the actual unfolding of events is a different discussion. But it's almost like, when you look at the spiritual nature of what is going on, it's really the difference between people in the Great Awakening coming to understand that they can have a personal relationship with an inner authority that is God, or that is their own soul, or that is the divine that animates them. Because in my view, the life force is the light of the soul, the living flame of God that we each are, and the Christed light in living form. Okay. Whew. Whew. That's some rare air. It feels good. All right, but then there's the other segment of the population, the soul cult. It's like they view God or the authority of the world outside themselves. It's definitely not within. It's definitely outside. And it's weird because the language that people use, they may actually believe they have a connection with God, but refer to God outside of themselves. This is a lot of ways that people pray. Right? When you pray, many people pray to God outside the self, but in my view, God is actually the wellspring of life that we are. That's what animates us, and that comes from within. So anyway, when I looked at the qualities and saw that pinging back and forth, that is what occurred to me. That is what occurred to me. And I also want to address the frequency rest. Let me go back to that chart here. Okay. And this is what I said about the frequency rest. In the deep blue or black at the low frequencies, in my view, we are essentially offline. And this is the greatest amount of deep blue or even black on the chart in the very low hertz that we have had, like I don't know if it's all year, but it's notable. And you also note there's very little green on the chart. Let me just get this smaller here so you can see. Yeah, there's very little green even in the very low hertz here, until this little tiny bit today for 4 hours. So here it is. It's January 1st. And what I want to say is that in this energy where we have the very deep experience in the low hertz, in this experience, okay? And then we also have the connection of 40 hertz. So at the very low end and the very high end of human brain waves, it's like we're communing with the greater self that we are. And we're offline. We are immune to the frequencies that are solely of this world, that are generated on Earth artificially. And what does that mean? I'm just saying, understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that if I write a paragraph about a belief, that carries a signature key of frequencies. And so but if I construct it as a living human being without engaging with my connection with God and the divine, just the human self and just the human mind, that is a constructed frequency that I'm talking about, something disconnected from the divinity that we are. Now, divinity animates us, but it only participates with us when we invite it in, when we invite God into our lives, when we invite the soul connection to activate and the influence of the soul, the living soul with which we can have a real relationship with in life. The greater you that you are. So right now we are immune to human-only frequency sets, human-only constructed frequency sets, to alien constructed frequency sets, using the traditional definition of alien being a stranger or a visitor. That is unknown, right? And so this is the time to commune with that energy and to gain the maximum benefit from divinity and your relationship with divinity. Because right now we're immune to the mind control. And I think that's why we're strengthening. Because God is in control. And some of us have the connection and some of us don't. And that's okay, because everybody's life path is different. And there's no judgment there at all. There have been many lifetimes that I've lived where I did not have that connection. And what I learned during those periods has helped me today in a lifetime where I do have the connection. And I wouldn't understand things as deeply without the previous experience. So as my friend Alex says, all experiences are valid. I may not agree with them in this life as a living human being, but from God's perspective, from the Creator's perspective, the Creator loves us all in our various expressions. But isn't this fascinating? What a great discussion and observation. Oh man, that really, all of that came to me while I was talking to you about the frequency sets, and it's so exciting. Now we can grab hold of this state of being, and we can make decisions now that continue to influence us as we go on through the calendar year and as we go into the natural new year, which starts in March, April. But the fact is, and I just had this realization because Alex and I were messaging back and forth, and she was laughing at me when I wished her a happy calendar year. Because she's awesome, and because she was saying every day is a great day of the year, right? And so what I said to her was, really, it's a new year of light because as I've discussed on my last 3, I think it is, videos, and if you haven't seen them, it's a cool discussion. I exactly explain how this time of year the light has just started expanding after the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. In the southern, you guys, it's the opposite. You know, I'll have to address that another time. But it is a new year of light. It is a new year, right? From the greatest darkness just after the solstice to at Christmas, roughly speaking, depending on where you're located, it's slightly different days. But at Christmas, the expanding light. And then we have a whole year now of the cycle of expanding light, peaking in the summer solstice, and then waning until next Christmas, until next winter solstice. Ooh, I just love it. Ah, what a great energy. I hope you're feeling some of this amazing energy today. God bless you, and thank you for being here.